Hey, this is Gary.
This is Mike.
And Daniel. We're not professionals. We're just three addicts sharing our experiences, strength, and hope regarding recovery.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in our lives.
Welcome to another episode of the 12th Step Podcast. This is Mike.
And this is Gary.
And this is Daniel.
We are very excited tonight. We have a very special guest on with us tonight. This is very exciting. We're anxious to hear her story. I'll just take just a second and briefly introduce Tera. She is an author. She's a former spouse of an addict and has written a book about her experience and has written in a time or two to communicate with us. And we're very excited to hear her story tonight. I think she's going to share an awful lot of information from her perspective, and I believe that's going to be tremendously helpful for our addict listeners and what they're going through with their own spouses. So first and foremost, thank you, Tera, for being part of our show and being part of our lives and part of our recovery. We've enjoyed very much our interaction with you. Tell us, first of all, a little bit about you and a little bit about your story, and then we can kind of work through that.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. You guys have been a tremendous beacon and guide light for me in navigating this process. It was very helpful for a betrayed wife to learn from men a little bit more about this process, more than I could understand from a book or anything. You just became friends, and I so appreciate it. I met my husband at age 40. It was our second marriage for both of us. My boyfriend at the time was 5 years out, and he had two kids my kid's age, and I was just freshly getting divorced. And we met in the bleachers. We were at all the kids' games, and we chuckled, and we had fun, and we were smitten with each other, and it was just wonderful. But I had just gotten divorced, and my kids needed me, and he appreciated that. And so we dated for 10 years. And we just raised our kids. We both did our jobs. And I was going back to school to become a school nurse. I needed to find a new way to make a living. And he was so patient with that. And when the kids headed off to college, we decided that would be a fresh start. That would be a great time for us to get married. We could buy a joint house. And when the kids came home from college, they would have a new territory to hang out in. And it was so exciting. And he was just the love of my life. And we just had an absolute blast together. No problems, chemistry, fun. Went to church, enjoyed all the same things, and at a certain point he had to start traveling to New York City Monday through Friday, and that was kind of a bummer. It happened before we got married, about 2 years before we got married, and I kind of got used to it. I worked full time, the kids were off at college, but when he came home on the weekends, I'd pick him up at the airport on Friday, and we didn't skip a beat. We just didn't skip a beat. We were so happy, absolutely adored each other's company. He worked a lot. He isolated a lot, but I was conditioned to that. I just rationalized that was him. And I knew that's how he operated in every aspect of his life. Like if we were planning a vacation, he would spend an inordinate amount of time on it, just like anything he researched. So that just kind of made sense to me. And I used to tease him. I'd say, gosh, I feel like you're morning girl and you're nighttime girl. Because we're with each other in the morning, we have breakfast, you head off, you're gone for 10 hours. I have to drag you out of there. What are we going to do? It's our Friday night, it's our Saturday night, it's our Sunday night. And I just got conditioned to that being kind of normal. So when he moved back from New York City after 7 years of traveling Monday through Friday, I was absolutely ecstatic to have a husband back. I couldn't wait to have meals together after work and take a walk after dinner and just catch up close and in person. And when he moved back, and it was just before COVID, he was not happy to be home. It was just so painfully obvious. And his phone was attached to his hand. I mean, he literally fell asleep with it in his hand. And he started sleeping on the couch on the weekends. I couldn't arouse him after we'd been watching a TV show to come up and go to sleep with me. And everything just started to completely unravel. And I knew something was way off. And so I kind of walked around his office. I was not anybody who looked into anybody's business. And I mean, I found the proof immediately. It was an orange Post-it note, which is the title of my book. And on that Post-it note were alias codes, like long login numbers and weird names and alias names. And so I had on the couch, he was working out downstairs, and I just started punching in all these long codes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a hookup app. And then I would log in another one, and it was a hookup app, and another one, and it was a different hookup app. And I was absolutely in shock, completely 1,000% blindsided, in shock. I just couldn't even fathom this disciplined, hardworking, ethical, romantic man could be doing this. And so I started Googling everything on those Post-it notes and found out exactly the hookup app. And the very first day that it happened, an hour after he left and went to work, I created a profile on one of those sites. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know what any of the alias names meant. I didn't know if it was him or her. I got so naive. I didn't know what the world I was getting into. And I punched it in, and I sent it to something else I found it on the Post-it note, and immediately got a response. What are your stats? And I just got really nervous. I didn't know what to do, and I just kind of hung up. So on this very first day of discovery, I just, even while in shock, and I don't know how I did it, I just staged a confrontation, and it had to be out of our home because my adult daughter, Molly, who had just finished her first year of college, was home, living at home just to save money for a year because she wanted to move out. So I had to go somewhere outside of the house. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I called him to a restaurant, and he came, and I confronted him. And what I very quickly realized was that if I wasn't absolutely 100% literal with him about something, he could easily say it wasn't true because I didn't have 100% of the facts straight. Very literal the whole time. I was 1 millimeter off on a question, or I was very quickly, easily gaslighted because I didn't have my facts straight. But of course, how could I have my facts straight? Because I only had 50% of the information. So there were 2 disclosures. There was an impact letter that was never responded to, but all the while immersing us in trying to save us, professing his love for me, how sorry he was, getting into programs, but wouldn't do the 12 steps, wouldn't get a sponsor, kept giving me that bravado, I've got this, don't worry, and reading Out of the Doghouse. And in the beginning, it seemed really serious. And I thought, gosh, could we even possibly wind up better than we were before? So cautiously excited. But then slips happened and mistakes were made, and I saw him pretending to do recovery, but he didn't know how closely I was watching. And as soon as I would walk out of the room, it would all be swiped away and it would be back to the internet. So we started to live by boundaries, and there were a lot of separations, some out of the house, some in the house. I gave him a second chance because I loved being married. I wanted to walk down the beach with him holding hands, gray-haired. I wanted to raise our grandchildren together. I just couldn't picture my life without him, so I just kept trying and giving him so much grace until at a certain point, after too many mistakes, women would reach out to him, and I would see on his cell phone, he didn't say goodbye, he kind of gave a wink. I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this to myself. I lost touch with friends. I was functioning, but barely functioning. I was stowing away in the house. I was trying to protect us, so I didn't let anybody in. I didn't tell my sisters. I had 3 of them. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my kids. And meanwhile, they all are like, where is she? And when they saw me, they're like, are you okay? And people were thinking I maybe had cancer, all to protect my marriage, which I was slowly learning was a gift I had bestowed on somebody undeserving, and I wasn't appreciating all the people that were there for me. So I accidentally wrote a book. Some of it are journal entries, some of it, I've always been a little bit of a creative writer. My first profession was in public relations for a charity. So it's something I've always liked to do. And so I would think about something that was really disturbing me, or thinking about something I actually did, like build a shrine of shame on his desk one day. And they became short little stories that articulated the process of healing, the process of waking up, the process of being, and it became something. And it was very healing for me. And I really want to help other betrayed partners out there, because for so many years, I kept the secret, I kept the lie. It took a great toll on me. It took a great toll on my health. And while I understand why I did it, it just took a toll. And I needed to write it all down and to get it all out there, because I know there's people out there who will get it, and maybe it will help them become a little stronger, love themselves a little bit more, give themselves some grace. And also, it's a book I wrote for the people who are doing the betraying, because it's a little bit of a fatal attraction for what can happen. Because I will tell you right now, my husband, we got divorced 2 months ago. He reaches out to me every day. He begs every day. He just didn't take it seriously. And I gave him so much grace. But I had to give myself grace in the end. I've talked a lot, gentlemen.
And you've said more.
Yes.
I have more
I'm
to
just
say,
going to
but
pop in here for a second. But Tara, that was your story is gut wrenching. Partly because there's so much of it that I relate to. In my own experience, and when I hear you say the word gaslighting, and I'm reminded of my own circumstance where if my wife didn't have 100% of the facts, that she clearly didn't get it, and all of those things, and so it was a just an absolutely gut wrenching description from my perspective, as I sat listening to think that I put that I put another human being through all of that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. I really do.
Yeah, I can.
I'm certain you all have lots of questions. I certainly do.
I do. I know that Daniel does.
Thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to echo Mike's sentiments. There was a lot that I could relate to, and it found a home. And I'm extremely grateful that you were willing and brave enough to come onto our podcast and share that with you. Having shared my story a number of times, I know that I share it often, but never lightly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I imagine that you probably feel a lot the same way. So I want to ask a clarifying question. You said that you were divorced just 2 months ago. Is that correct?
Yes, it took a long time for the divorce. He did not want the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't in the beginning, but then I was adamant that it had to happen.
Sure.
And it took him 2 years. He's still in denial about his addiction. And I know he's still addicted, and he knows I know. He's still in denial, even with me in texting to this day. So it took a long time. I care about him.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew he was hurting and it being over. And so for some ungodly reason, I was just kind of patient in teaching him to let me go and to working on a settlement that was fair, that we could both accept. But then I could see that he just wasn't getting it. So I moved out before we were divorced because I thought, even though we had boundaries and they were serious boundaries, we were still kind of playing house. And it wasn't healthy for either one of us anymore.
Right.
Because if I was making dinner for myself, I would make dinner for him. We did each other's laundries. He was doing way too much nice stuff for me. So it was like kind of over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is absolutely unhealthy. I have to move out. And then it took another year and like 2 or 3 months for him to really believe that it was going to happen. But I had to protect myself. And I had lost a lot of my friends and family kind of because they didn't understand it. They didn't respect my process. They didn't respect my boundaries. They didn't think I was safe. And in a lot of ways, I kind of wasn't. And I had to honor the people that were there for me every single day of my life over somebody who just kept making mistakes and wasn't serious about getting better.
So a lot of this is still quite fresh.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't wait till the day it's not fresh. I'm so much healthier than I was before. And I was just reminded of that. And this is one of the reasons I wrote the book. A very dear friend of mine just found out fresh, 3 days ago that her husband's been having a very serious affair for 8 years. And it brought me back to the early days. And I just realized, oh my God, I've come such a long way. I just didn't even realize what a long way I've come. And I just feel so horrible for her. And I've just realized I've really come a long way. But it will always hurt.
Yeah.
Sure. In
It
fact,
will always hurt.
it's kind of interesting that you say that, because one of the reasons why I continue to do my 12-step work, the 12th step particularly, is because, you know, it puts me in a situation where I can listen to and help people that are kind of at the beginning of their journey. And I don't like the way that this sounds, but to watch them go through those initial steps makes me go, oh, I'm so glad that that's not where I'm at anymore. And I am not going back,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to point out is, you know, as Tera was telling her story, is you can hear the love that she has for this man, but you can also hear the pain
sure.
that has come from the events and the difficulties that she has faced with someone. I mean, we've all seen him, you know, we've called him this before. I mean, tourists.
Sure.
You know, he had the opportunity. He could have gone to 12 steps, where I think he probably would have really gained some really powerful tools and made some headway where Tera could have felt safe.
Sure.
But he rejected that outright.
Well, it's a lot like Shane, our common counselor, used to say, you know, this going through this is either going to help you get well or it's going to make you a much better addict.
Yeah. And that's what it kind of sounds like has happened, unfortunately for him, which has just created a very painful experience. Because, I mean, the one thing I noticed when you started talking about your story and you were talking about how you met him and all these things, you could feel the love, you could feel the lightness in your tone and how much that meant to you. And then you started digging into, you know, once you mentioned the Post-it note, you could feel the heaviness start sinking in and the pain start appearing in your story, which, you know, we've all been here. The three of us have been there where, you know, we've had that moment with our spouse. We've had that confrontation. And, you know, for me, you know, I didn't really get serious and really didn't get the help I needed until my marriage ended, unfortunately. And there were some other components to my marriage that attributed to things. But, you know, that's kind of that breaking point is when a marriage ends, is that the bottom? You know, have you hit rock bottom?
Yeah. Sadly,
it sounds like your ex-spouse has not hit rock bottom yet.
Maybe this will be it for him.
Maybe. But
No.
you don't have to go on that rock slide down the hill with him. You've done as much as you could to support him, to try to help him climb out of it without hitting the bottom. But you finally reached a point where it's like, enough's enough. I can't keep doing this, which is wonderful for you, you know, and even more wonderful is the fact that you've taken your experience, translated it into a book. I mean, we've talked about gratitude journaling and all these other things that are extremely helpful, which you've done. But now you've created a tool for other people to use, which is that 12th step promise.
Yeah. And it's going to be a continuing blessing to you and I hope many others.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that.
I hope so too.
Tera, you know what you said that I found particularly interesting and even really thought-provoking? And I almost want to do an entire episode on this as a future topic, but the idea that you kept saying, and I was conditioned to it, and I was conditioned to it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, my goodness, you know, I know that there were things that I did and I conditioned my wife to it. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that there were certain things that I did to do it intentionally, you know? And then, you know, the flip side of that is what I started thinking about is what am I conditioning my family to now? And is that healthy? Because I think isn't that just kind of habitual kind of pattern, what you condition yourself to, or anyway, it's just a thought that's percolating and that I want to explore sometime.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. I mean, I was conditioned not to call him when he was in New York. Mm-hmm. Whenever I called, it was just a bad time. I felt unwelcome. I got sadly agitated, like, oh my God, I'm calling my husband. So I quickly learned that I just accepted his call. And I just thought he was the busy, you know, CFO of a company. And he is always important to me. I had a busy career. I'm a school nurse. It was hard to find time to call him during the day. And it was usually for a specific reason. I didn't call to waste time. So I was conditioned not to call. And
Tera,
looking back,
can I ask you a question? Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just a question for you that came to my mind is how did you find us in all of this? How did you? At what point in time? I mean, were you speaking to a counselor? And a counselor said, "Hey, listen to these three idiots talk about their addictive problems," or what? How did you stumble onto us?
Yeah, actually, I'm really curious too because we don't get this kind of story very often.
No.
I think perhaps my husband told me about you guys. I think his therapist told him about you guys, and we started listening to the show a little bit together. And then I stayed on, and he fell off. So you guys.
So he's listened to our. He's listened to our podcast. Then he's heard some of our stuff. Then
in the beginning, he stopped listening when an email that I sent you guys was the subject of our show. Not anger at you, just I think it was something that was too painful for him to ever listen to anymore. Because I don't know, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
He just wasn't into recovery anymore. So it's, here I am rationalizing for him. Oh, it must be the letter I read. It's my fault. I gotta stop that. He stopped listening to you guys a long time before that, and he stopped listening. But I'm going to give him credit. He did eventually jump into the 12 steps. But
I still really hope he finds his way out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I do for him too. I just, I'm a school nurse, and I study, the psychology of growing old and all the stages that you have to hit, and if you don't achieve something at a certain stage in life, then you're not going to be mature enough to enjoy the next stage in life.
Right.
And we've talked about it. And just one of those people that's truly in addiction. So much so that he doesn't even know he is.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just believes his own lies. And he's such a good person. It's such a sad, sad thing. Because he's got so much to offer the world. And he's so smart. But the shame he has never let me in. And I've given him a million opportunities. I know what his mom and dad were like. I know what his childhood was like. I know that he was neglected. I think his mom was definitely autistic, and he didn't even know it. The first time I met his mom, and we were driving home, I said, "Oh my God, you didn't tell me your mom has autism." And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Oh my God, she is 100% has autism. You've never known that?" And so I cut him so much slack for some of the things that he went through in his childhood. But at a certain point, it's not a reason anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He knew
That's
he was
true.
hurting me. And I probably stayed in the marriage longer than I should have for those facts. But we would talk about it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you should really get some therapy in." And that was a lot to go through. And he was adopted, and he had a sister who had drug problems. And he was a total athlete that was not allowed. He could do like anything, club sports that he could get himself to and back. But if the parents had to drive him, no. So he was a talented hockey player, he was a talented baseball player, and he was never able to do the things he wanted to do.
I hear a lot of trauma.
And I had so much sympathy. He had a lot of trauma, but I'm going to tell you, my first husband did this to me. And my second husband, who I left, knew this happened to me.
Yeah.
And immediately before getting married, did it to me again. So there's that too.
Let me ask you a question. Was it, I don't even know how to, was it worth it? Were you grateful that you gave him the second chance, even though it didn't work out?
I am, because I have no regrets. I know I did everything I could. I have total respect for being kind in the process, being thoughtful. I threw the kitchen sink at it. So I was able to walk away completely in check.
Yeah.
Because I loved him. And if I got rushed into it for a family and now well-meaning friends and well-meaning kids, I might have felt like I did it too soon, not know I did everything I could have. I did retreats, I did workbooks, I did counseling. I did EMDR. I went away on retreats. I was embedded in the process, and more so than he was. And so I didn't forgive him. I won't say that, but I gave him second chances a couple times. And I could have talked about him to everybody in the community and made him feel horrible. I kept it a secret. I protected us for a long time. And with the thought that maybe it would be okay in the end, but it wasn't. So I don't have any regrets about that, except that it took a toll on my health, and the hypervigilance and the paranoia were just really made me suffer for about 3 or 4 years. So those are kind of wasted 4 years, you know. But not, because I'm at total peace with this. I will always be sad about it, but I total peace with it. And there's a lot to be said for that. Because I think if you leave immediately and don't process it and don't try to work on it, then maybe you might have some regrets later. Maybe not that you're not together, but just something about yourself.
Sure.
No, there's a lot of great things that I heard here. First off, I'm going to rewind it back a little bit, because you said you threw it a lot in there, so I apologize. It does sound like there's still some demons from his childhood that he hasn't worked through. I know that was a huge thing for me with my addiction. I had to work through those demons. They had to come up. They had to see the light of day. It sounds like you gave him the opportunities to talk to you about those. He just wasn't willing. Definitely sounds like a challenging childhood, just with what he went through with his mom. I can definitely relate to those things. I do hope he finds recovery, true recovery, but I do worry that he's doing it hoping to get you back. You know, it's just really coincidental. But hopefully that's not the case. But when it comes to your story, what really spoke out to me is you said this this happened with your first husband, and now it's happened with him. I truly believe that, you know, our higher power keeps throwing the same thing at us until we change and heal and grow, and we don't have. We've learned that we've learned how to overcome those things, and then we can move on and get something better. And so it seems like, okay, the first one came along, you did probably grow and do some things, but maybe you didn't get the right lesson the way he wanted, and then this guy came along. But now look at you. You wrote a book. You're very empowered. You have the right tools. If someone else comes along into your life, I don't think this is going to be the same situation again, because you're going to see the red flags. You're going to have conversations. You're going to have boundaries in place where these same things can't happen again. And not only that, you're out talking to other women that have been in similar situations, and you're empowering them.
Which I think is so, needed.
Yes.
Man,
It's a gift.
Everybody that I talk to, you know, a really, really common thing is that their wife really struggles with, well, who do I talk to? Where do I go? What do I do? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm really grateful that you found us.
Yeah.
You know, it may have started with him, but you stayed on, and our words resonated in some way that helped you through this. Now, by no means are we the single thing that got you through this. There's a lot of things I've heard that have helped you through this, but I'm just grateful that we were in some small way helpful to get you through this difficult situation. You know, it's sad that your marriage is ended. But I can tell just from the way you talk and your presence that you are going to charge forward, and no matter what happens moving forward, it's going to be, you know, as Gary puts it, the best life ever moving forward. Doesn't mean there aren't going to be any challenges. And we all have them, but man, it's going to be a spectacular life.
And I think that if you continue the way that you're going, you're going to find that none of your experiences was wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hope so.
You know,
this has been fun. It's been therapeutic.
And
it touches on things that I haven't seen anywhere else.
yeah.
Because the other thing is, I wrote this when I started to get my sense of humor back in life. And all of a sudden one day I was laughing and I was telling a joke and I hadn't done it in so long. And I thought, oh my God, I'm getting myself back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not taking this for granted. I am going to run with it. I don't know what happened, but something in me is starting to heal. All the Band-Aids, everything I listened to, everything I read, everything I practiced. And I just knew that maybe I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing your own recovery.
Yeah. Mark my words, you continue.
Oh no, I had a lot of help.
you continue doing this kind of work, and you'll find that even some of the worst things that you went through and overcame will uniquely qualify you to help somebody who's dealing with something similar. And then you'll say to yourself, maybe it was worth going through that for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't, you will.
I think that's starting to pan out even as we speak, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to have a friend come forward after 3 days, just 3 days ago, to say, "Oh my word, I've had this experience, and I'm in no place to be able to deal with it mentally, and you're there.
Yeah,
you're there. That's a monstrous gift, just an absolute gift that you've, the fortitude that you've experienced and all the things that you've had to go through to be there now for somebody else is just a huge gift." I think we've talked an awful lot about her spouse. My heart breaks for him. My heart breaks for you. This is
Like I said, I love being married. There's nothing greater than being with somebody that you love being around and you support each other and you're just each other's wingman. I can't tell you how many nights I've stayed home and I'm fine doing it, but I got invited to something and I don't want to go alone. I'm not going to go to Second City alone last Saturday. And so, I mean, that's not the only part of being married, but that's a big thing you give up. Mm-hmm. Because the friends are all married. I've made some new friends, but you don't want to overtax people, and you're just getting to know them. And I mean, there was one night I called like 30 different people. I had tickets to the Lumineers concert at Soldier Field. I literally had 30 people who, it was Labor Day weekend, I'll give them that. But nobody could go. And I was like, I am an absolute loser. So I was about to sell the tickets, and I reached out to one more person because perseverance. And she was the perfect person to ask. She said, I would love to. You're going to come down 2 hours before because it's really hard to get into that venue. And then we're going to go hang out on my friend's boat. And I made a new friendship. And I'm lucky that I'm perseverant that way because, I mean, it took 31 phone calls. And I just never thought that would be my situation. But it is. And I think I'm a better person for it.
Well, I mean,
gut-wrenching.
I've been there myself.
Absolutely gut-wrenching story.
Yeah. Yeah, just think of it. It did take 31 phone calls, but it only took one right one, and you had an amazing time.
And I love that it sounds like you were willing to make 32.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh, I think you're stronger than
That
you.
was my Hail Mary call.
I don't know. With as persistent as you've been, I think you would have probably gone to 35, no problem.
Yeah. Easy peasy.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time for this. So we'll wrap this up.
I think so. I think
And then we'll jump.
Let's wrap this up, and then let's move this conversation over to. We still have Tera here for a couple of other some follow-up questions that we want to ask, but let's wrap up this episode. Tera, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. It was deep. It was raw. It was for me. It was. It brought up an awful lot of emotion and a lot of feeling. That's one thing I know for myself, that whenever I feel that, when I feel someone else's story experience, your story bolsters my recovery. It just simply does. Everybody who shares their story in that way, I come away knowing and feeling that my commitment to my own recovery is important to me. And so thank you for sharing that. I know that our listeners can learn from this. I do know that.
I agree.
I agree too. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say, listening to you and your story has found a place in my heart. And the first thing I'm going to do as soon as I'm done here is I'm going to go home and tell my wife once again how much I genuinely appreciate her, because hearing your story gave me another reminder and a new perspective that I really appreciate, that I'm going to keep. So thank you so much.
Aw, I love that.
Yeah. So with that, this is Mike saying, do the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring.
And this is Gary saying, do the next right thing.
And this is Daniel saying, find the humility in your recovery.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
As a fellowship of recovering addicts, Sex Addicts Anonymous offers a message of hope to anyone who suffers from sex addiction. Check out saa-recovery.org.